Right now, as we are in this new hour, we're just getting this new update. For the first time, we're hearing from Secretary Kristi Noem speaking on her ouster from the position of Secretary there in the Department of Homeland Security. Of course, we just heard remarks from her there, but this is her first statement that she is now putting out on social media, saying this: "Thank you, President Trump, for appointing me as the special envoy for the Shield of Americas." Secretary Rubio and Secretary of War saying that they are incredible leaders, and I look forward to working with them closely to dismantle cartels that have poured drugs into our nation and killed our children and grandchildren. The Western Hemisphere is absolutely critical for U.S. security. In this new role, I will build on the partnerships and national security expertise I forged over the last 13 months as the Secretary of Homeland Security. We have made historic accomplishments at the Department of Homeland Security to make America safe again. We delivered the most secure border in American history. 3 million illegal aliens have left the United States. We have located 145,000 children. FEMA delivered disaster relief at a 100% faster rate. We ushered in the golden age of travel, saved the American taxpayer $13 billion, and revitalized the U.S. Coast Guard. And so that's the full statement that you're able to see there on your screen as Secretary Noem is now speaking and reacting there publicly after being removed as the head of the Department of Homeland Security. Of course, we do know that this does come with other elements as well, taking you out to this live vantage point that we have outside of the office of Senator Mullin. The Republican from Oklahoma has since been named by President Trump as the person that he would like to replace Kristi Noem in this position. And so to kind of talk about all of this, what we're seeing here there on Capitol Hill, I'd like to bring into the conversation now political analyst Brian Sobel. Brian, thanks so much for being with us here on LiveNOW from Fox.
My pleasure, Christina. Another busy day on Capitol Hill and in Washington, D.C. and around the world.
Absolutely. These storylines that we've been following here, they're out of our nation's capital. It was interesting today. We were hearing mumblings behind the scenes that this potentially was on the verge of happening. Ultimately, that announcement was made just over an hour ago by President Trump, saying that he's effectively pulling Kristi Noem. We do know that it's been also a very busy week for her, having to testify there on Capitol Hill. I first want to get your reaction to her statement that she was able to put out on her X account, now speaking publicly for the first time on the new position, sort of framing it that way, it seems like, talking about what she will be stepping into in the next is her next venture.
Well, to me, it was sort of a face-saving statement that the president had reassigned her, as it were. But I don't think anybody in Washington is fooled by the fact that she was let go by the president as head of DHS. And the testimony earlier in the week in Congress did not go well. And some other things that were emerging about Kristi Noem, including a lot of money spent on television commercials and other things, I think came to a head. And Donald Trump took the decision to make the change.
And so as you see there, if you weren't able to hear the full statement, we're showing it on your screen once again. But I also want to go back to the statement that President Trump initially put out when all of this information dropped, putting it up on your screen now for folks at home who may have missed it. But it's quite lengthy. But Brian, I want to read it out here just so we can sort of frame how President Trump initially put this information out as well to all who were following and listening into this breaking news. He said, "I am pleased to announce that the highly respected United States Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullin, will become the United States Secretary of Homeland Security effective March 31st, 2026. The current Secretary, Kristi Noem, who has served us well and has had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border, will be moving to the Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere. We are announcing on Saturday in Doral, Florida. I thank Kristi for her service there at Homeland. Serving 10 years in the United States House of Representatives and 3 in the Senate, Markwayne has done a tremendous job representing the wonderful people of Oklahoma where I won all 77 out of 77 counties in 2016, 2020, and 2024. A MAGA warrior and former undefeated professional MMA fighter, Mark Wayne truly gets along well with people and knows the wisdom and courage required to advance our America First agenda. The only Native American in the Senate, Mark Wayne is a fantastic advocate for our incredible tribal communities. Mark Wayne will work tirelessly to keep our border secure, stop migrant crime, murderers, and other criminals from illegally entering our country, end the scourge of illegal drugs, and make America safe again. Mark Wayne will make a spectacular Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Again, we did want to make sure that folks knew that this was quite lengthy that President Trump put out there on his social media accounts. But really in that long statement, he did address, of course, reassigning Kristi Noem to her new position, but trying to get into the background that we can see there from Senator Mullin for folks who might not be familiar with him all around the country. Again, talking to how long he's been there in Congress on Capitol Hill, 10 years serving there in the House of Representatives, another 3 in the Senate chamber. What else did you hear from that and see from President Trump that might have led him to this decision?
Well, I think particularly the fact that Donald Trump did very well in Oklahoma over and over again, and Mark Wayne Mullin is a huge supporter of Donald Trump's. They consider themselves friends, you know, beyond just their respective positions, Christina. And I think he trusts that this senator, junior senator from Oklahoma, now becoming DHS secretary, will completely support the president's policies on immigration and these other issues. And there's a photo of Mark Wayne Mullin. And so the change, I think, started coming over the last few weeks as Kristi Noem was losing favor in Washington, D.C. and with the president. And it's been very clear over the years that when you lose some favor with the president, he's going to make a change pretty quickly.
And so we're looking there at this photo that we have of Senator Mullin as he's getting ready to see what happens as he takes there. I do want to play out a quick soundbite that we have from him as well. We haven't been able to play this out here on Live Now from Fox, but we heard from the senator very briefly. Let's listen.
No, the president, I still got to communicate, so we'll talk about it moving forward. But I appreciate it, guys. Yeah, the president and I have already talked. Obviously, the statement went out, but we need to talk with the president, and we're going to get on the same page and do what we need to do.
Do you want to change at DHS? When did you make changes at DHS? When did you find out, sir?
A little bit before you guys did.
Do you want the job?
Any changes?
Senator, did you expect this?
Let me, guys, I'll talk to y'all before. Let me go.
Do you want the job, Senator?
All right, as you see, reporters immediately hounding the senator as he's walking up the steps there on Capitol Hill, just trying to get any information out of him as this all unfolded. Again, we wanted to play this soundbite out for you, thanks to Bill Mallusian there with Fox News, who was one of those reporters who was able to get this initial reaction from Senator Mullin. And so, Brian, as we were listening in there, he made an interesting comment saying that he found out just before you guys did. That's what he kind of framed it as, his now introduction to this new position as he's now going to be nominated for. What else stuck out to you from his comments?
That he needed to get on the same page with the president about what the job is going to entail, what the president's expectations are. When you take over for somebody else, especially at that kind of level, you first have to assess what the president didn't think Kristi Noem was doing that now you are going to be doing as the new DHS secretary. At least if you're smart, that's how you're going to handle it. And I think the senator is a smart guy, and I think he wants to make sure that he understands the president's expectations and what the mission is. And it appeared from those comments that kind of closure discussion had not yet taken place. In fact, it was almost the president announcing that he would take the job almost before he knew he was going to take the job. So welcome to Washington, D.C., and how quickly things occur there in D.C. But I've walked up those steps many times and watched reporters chasing people up those steps many times. And, he's kind of running the gauntlet there.
And so as we're continuing to wait and watch, we did also hear from Senator Mullin saying that he had not yet, at the time that this announcement went out, actually spoken himself to Secretary Kristi Noem. He did, of course, speak a little bit about their relationship, saying that their two families are friends as well. Do you think that this sort of adds to the complicated nature of a transition like this? And what should we be on the lookout for as far as any further comments from Secretary Noem?
Really good question. I think first, Donald Trump provided Kristi Noem a soft landing. He gave her another position. She wasn't fired and released from the administration. He knows that she has been loyal to him. The fact that the job wasn't working out very well in the president's view over the last weeks in terms of her leadership of DHS was unfortunate, but I think Donald Trump felt like she's a loyalist, feels she's a loyalist, and gave her another position. And in doing so, I think that softens her feelings about being moved to a different position and allows for the senator to take over DHS. And, you know, at this level, Christina, a lot of these families know each other. It's just, you know, it's a very rarefied air. And so when you're in Washington, D.C., or frankly in these home states, at a certain level, everybody knows everybody pretty well. And that's the case here. And I do want to say, before we move on with the conversation, that Kristi Noem had a major challenge in dealing with the immigration issues and everything else. And I think she comported herself well, given the circumstances, but it started to become a little bit unraveled in the last few weeks, particularly with what happened in Minnesota and the testimony on Capitol Hill, word coming out about a lot of money being spent on what looked like vanity things like television commercials and other things. And I think it finally hit a crossroads for the president. He said, she has now become a distraction. And when you become a distraction, you have to go away. And that's what happened here today.
And so we'll continue to watch and listen into some of this reaction as it's coming in. And Brian, I want to get your reaction to this. I'm putting up this tweet that we have from Jackie Heinrich there with Fox News, saying, according to a source that's familiar with the matter, President Trump spoke with Noem just before that Truth Social post went out. And then saying also there that Lewandowski, folks may not be familiar with that name. I'll go into a little detail about that in just a second, saying that they are expected to leave this office and position as well with her. But we do know that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem refused to answer questions this week from two House Democrats about her relationship with a Trump ally who works as an unpaid advisor to her department. That's, of course, Lewandowski there. Of course, it was during that House Judiciary Committee hearing that representative there from California asked Noem if she had, quote, sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski during her tenure as DHS chief. Lewandowski has been a long ally of President Trump, who ran his 2016 presidential campaign and currently works as a special advisor at the Department of Homeland Security. We should also note here that Secretary Noem, who's married, her husband was attending that hearing, reacted with noticeable anger there in her voice, saying, I am shocked that we're peddling tabloid garbage in this committee. And so this sort of complicates the matter when you're looking at it from a larger standpoint. You mentioned the fact that President Trump possibly began to think that some of the energy around Secretary Noem might have been a distraction for his administration and some of the policies that they're trying to continue to roll out here. But what's your reaction to hearing that Lewandowski would likely be out as well alongside Secretary Noem?
Well, this is about cleaning out what has become a controversial situation. The DHS Secretary Noem, Lewandowski, all the other things I've already mentioned are all distractions from what Donald Trump thinks is the core mission of the Department of Homeland Security. And when a person becomes bigger than the department and their problems become bigger than the department, that is a problem for the rank and file, for the leadership, for, in this case, the President of the United States. And it just hits kind of a crossroads, as I say, and something has to break. And what happens is, in this case, the secretary has to go away, and in this case, given another position. But clearly, that was going to happen, given everything that's been going on over the last few weeks.
All right, I want to put this up on the screen there as well. This is more from Jackie Heinrich there with Fox News saying this, quote, "It was a combination of her many unfortunate leadership failures from Minnesota to the ad campaign and to the allegations of an affair. A source familiar with me tells me of President Trump's decision to remove Kristi Noem as DHS secretary." So those sort of quips that are going to be coming from the president are going to continue to come into our newsroom as we're watching all of this reaction. And so, Brian, my next line of questioning, though, kind of comes with how we move forward. Of course, we have this live vantage point that we've been continuing to monitor right there outside of Senator Mark Wayne Mullin's office as he's now been nominated by President Trump. But we know that this doesn't end here. This isn't the end of the road. Can you sort of talk about what that process looks like for him as he's now been announced? President Trump would like to see him step into that new position as of March 31st, but he has to then also go through Congress.
Right. He's an interim. He will be an interim director of Homeland Security, and he has to, and his nomination will go forward to the Senate, and he'll have to go out and secure support. But he's in the Senate, so he knows a lot of these senators already. I think they will have confidence in him. He's got a really, really interesting biography, including his Native American status and a lot of other things. And I think that is going to be to his great advantage. And if you look back at what Jackie posted, it was the simple reasons that she laid out, which are the same that I laid out, are the reasons why Donald Trump had to take this decision. And so he's bringing in a fresh face here in Mark Wayne Mullin. And Mullin is going to have an agenda. It won't be terribly different than Secretary Noem, but it'll be a different profile. He isn't going to be kind of that out front face that Noem was for as secretary. She was kind of in the middle of a lot of things and seemed to enjoy, to some extent, the limelight. I think that probably got under the president's skin, and this will be a different story with the senator, assuming he gets through the nomination and the process, which I have no doubt he will. And he'll present a different profile as the head of Homeland Security.
All right, and so we're again still keeping this up on the screen just in case Senator Mullin once again decides to walk out, and we'll be able to hear any more remarks to him as well. But let's also talk about what happens in that interim position. I want to put this up on your screen. This is from LiveNOW's own Ryan Schmelz, who's been really using some of his contacts there on Capitol Hill to bring us the latest information, saying this: Representative Stephanie Bice is considering a run for the Senate to replace Mark Wayne Mullin. This is per a source that's familiar with the matter. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt would appoint a replacement to finish out Mullin's term that goes through the end of the year. It's interesting to see how all of this will unfold and what happens if she steps into this position. I have to ask you, we do know that there is a strained relationship right now between the Republican governor of Oklahoma and President Trump, not always on the same page. So what are we looking at as it comes to the next person who would potentially step into the senator's position?
This is what happens when you shake up the order, as it were. It has downstream implications. So now you have the representative saying she's considering a run for the Senate. But what happens is, in this case, with Mark Wayne Mullin, he steps aside, takes the job as DHS head, and then the governor appoints somebody to replace his position. His term, as the graphic shows, goes through the end of the year. So now game on with the United States Senate in Oklahoma, and then the position in the House of Representatives. So in all of these cases, when you see a sitting member of Congress, particularly a senator, who's willing to leave office and take a presidential appointment, or in this case, a job in the administration, it has consequences. It all flows downhill, and now you've got the politics of Oklahoma and the governor who, as you say, does not get along very well with the president. The person he appoints, is that somebody that reflects his point of view or the Oklahoman point of view, which was very supportive of Donald Trump, remains to be seen. But every single time somebody is plucked out of the Senate or the House of Representatives to take a position in an administration, it has this rippling effect.
And so it'll be interesting to see. Of course, we are in a midterm year as well.
Yes.
I am hearing as well that we're getting new reaction. And I'm going to put this up on the screen. It's going to be from Caroline Leavitt, of course, the press secretary there with President Trump. I'm going to put this live look first that we have there of the White House as we're working behind the scenes to get some of that reaction up. But again, this is what we're waiting for. The reaction from different members who are very close to President Trump. We're hearing him on Truth Social. We do know that President Trump is expecting to make remarks later today in just about an hour, actually, or so, a little less than an hour or so. He's expected to have an event happening at the White House. And so hopefully we'll be able to get some of those reporters in the room to be able to ask him some questions. But as we're watching all of this and this statement's being handed to you, as soon as we have it on screen, I'll put it up for folks as well. And so it says this is from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying President Trump is grateful to Kristi Noem for helping usher in the most secure border in American history. And he looks forward to her continuing to serve in her new important role as special envoy for the Shield of the Americas. The White House will work with the Senate to confirm the extraordinarily qualified Senator Markwayne Mullin as the next Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security as quickly as possible. President Trump's immigration agenda is keeping our borders secure and deporting illegal alien criminals from our country, and it will continue without interruption. I do think this is interesting as we're also watching the backdrop of that vote that happened earlier today on Capitol Hill within the chambers talking about DHS funding. Not the first time, but it also failed once again. So the department is still sitting in a funding lapse. Is this move likely to kind of help push the needle forward, or at least is that the president's hope at this point?
Yes, I think he was getting word that perhaps a compromise could be found, but there had to be changes at DHS. And a big change is taking somebody who's been in leadership, in Kristi Noem, for only 13 months and removing her in favor of a Senate colleague of many of these people. Now, we've heard from a couple senators saying, hey, we don't care that the president has changed the director, the head of the agency, because we still don't like what's going on with ICE. And at the same time, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes here, but there's a lot of chatter in the Senate. And at this point, there may be a deal being crafted now that Noem has left and Markwayne Mullin will become interim director.
It'll be interesting to watch it all unfold. We also did hear, though, from Senator Chuck Schumer, the minority leader, and that's on that side of things on Capitol Hill, saying that basically good riddance to Kristi Noem, but saying that it doesn't change anything because of some of the policies. So that debate between Republicans and Democrats trying to close the gap is going to be something that we continue to watch here on Live Now from Fox. As always, we appreciate political analyst Brian Sobel for joining us on a moment's notice to break down some of this breaking news as it came into our newsroom. Thanks so much, Brian.
My pleasure. Have a good afternoon now.